There we go. My microphone hasn't been turned this entire time. Perfect. Okay. So, we're going to keep cruising on our game jam today. Trying to make something special happen. Get rid of some more of these jaggities. There we go. A little better. It's good that we're cranking that gain down as well. That's good. I thought I had been muted. No, never. You're never muted, Wife Quest. All these other guys. All these other people. Oh. Whew! We are here. We're going to make some games. I'm very excited. The biggest problem I have to encounter today, as much as I would love to dive into the hand management, we need to deal with Git first. Git is how we're handling version control between the different people, and oh boy, do I not really know how to use Git. So, what we want to do today, we need to merge Git, and we need to do playing cards from hand. Now, I did, before the stream, pull up Git and merged, and it said, this is all exploding. Don't merge. So, we're going to see what we can figure out. So I'm going to abort the merge. Can I open this now? Is it going to work? Is it going to give us what we had before I tried to connect? Vertical center grid, not set before reading it. Use you? What do you mean? OBJ controller. Vertical center grid. Controller step. Vertical center grid. Oh, this is the, yeah. So we need to do OBJ global dot. Try that. See if that's still crashing. Whoop. OBJ controller dot tile size. Not set before reading it. Where are we setting tile size? Oh. Global dot tile size. Yeah, it is set. What are you talking about? OBJ global dot tile size, right? Oops. Huh. In fact, let's rename this to be underscore tile size. Oh no, but that's not going to work, is it? Because that's a locally scoped variable. So we'll just copy, paste, paste, paste. And then we've got a couple more tile sizes to deal with down here. And dot grid. think we need to move this into here. And then we can go back to our controller. Every time we're referencing grid, global.grid. Here we go. This is looking better. This is looking better. Okay, global.grid. And then path. Where are we defining path? We're putting path in globals as well? Shouldn't be, right? Be like in the enemy object? Yeah, that's fine. Well, that should all work. Okay, so that's done. See what happens. Controller.tilesize. Not set before reading it. But it really super duper is though. Oh, turn it. There we go. Try this again. Still. Wait, obj controller.tilesize. Yeah, it shouldn't be controller.tilesize. Where do we have more others in here? Line 44. Oh, there's more stuff down here. All right. Let's grab our global, copy that in. And let's scroll all the way down. I think we're probably okay. We're probably okay. There we go. Now we have a working game again. Good, 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 good. Okay. We need to do git. How do we... Or rather, let's pull down before we push. How do I pull? Unable to pull when changes are present on your branch. Following files would be overwritten. Those. Reload. Hopefully nothing broke. Okay, good. Let's make a new branch. And this will be cards. Or I guess I could put my name in there. I don't know. Bring my changes to cards. And then leave my changes on cards. Okay, so this is now the origin stuff. How do I bring up both of these? Like merge them in together in a meaningful way. Okay. So let's have a little more room here. I think what I can do is I can go over to Git. Maybe? But I just want to pull them up side by side. Just let me pull them up. Okay. There has to be a better way than this. I'm just gonna do it this way, which is crazy annoying. No, I can't just copy and paste it all in. For the changes. Reload. Other message. Huh. Well, this is cool. I didn't know about this. This is rad. Wait, no, not any of these. You know, we don't even need this anymore. Just get rid of it. Oh. This is tough. How do we merge these in together? Let's go. Let's save this. Go back to main. And then we'll try to merge cards. Commits in the selected branch will be combined into one commit. Commits from the selected branch will be added to the current branch via a merge commit. Yes. The branch is up to date with cards? I doubt that. Oh. It actually looks like it might be. Okay, I think we need to do the updates that we just did here. That's fine. Swap other out for obj_global. And replace them all, right? Unknown object.grid. Right, we did move grid out. Yes, we moved grid out and we got rid of that. So let's go back to OBJ Global, add the grid back in here, and that should fix it. That should crash it, is what I meant to say. Ha! Okay. So in the controller, in the draw, there we go. That's our problem. OBJ Global dot. There we go. Frabjous. Absolutely frabjous. Hooray. Kalukale. What a frabjous day. Hey, we're up to date on Git. I don't really know how it happened, but the automagic stuff has happened. So, let's go to our cards. Card parent. We are working on this left down here. On being able to click and drag a card off of your hand into a playable space. So, we have these variables that we have set. So we need, do we need an initial X, initial Y? I think so. No, I don't think so. We needed that for our polyominoes because they needed to reset to their old position before, if we decided to, if something went wrong. We definitely don't need the angle. I don't think we need the initial X or Y. I think what we can just do is put them in the them in the array again. So we remove them from the array when they leave the hand, and if they come back into the hand, we just put it back into the array. And then you get kind of pseudo hand management too. You can move cards around by moving it to the end. I can actually see we're gonna need to move the hand position and everything out of here. We're gonna have to put this in a script. So let's put all of this in a new script. We're gonna call that script draw hand. Go. So this is to draw all the cards in the player's hand on screen, centered, and bottom. Not enough time for laughing. Gotta keep moving. Right. And then left down, I think instead of doing this, we're going to call are we going to call it? I don't think so. I think we're going to keep this. So we're going to click and drag. We're setting that dragging. We're going to set dragging equals false in the create step. Set up dragging flag. Oops. And then all we want to do is so we need to say if you are mousing over something with an ID, then we're going to say not, object name, yeah. And then we can do card parent. So if the name of the thing you're clicking and dragging is card parent, keep moving. And this is where we're going to set dragging to true. In fact, we can move that into our script, that's for sure. Or is it? I think that's a no. We want dragging to be true. And then we're going to say x equals mouse x, y equals mouse y. And then if, where did this get into? If x is we want to do if x equals, we want to do a position meeting, right? We want to tell, is this now on the grid? Let's look at how we're defining that grid again. Let's see, how is the enemy referencing it? Draw path. And path is path add. Okay. What about the controller? Is that referencing it in an interesting way? The grid path. This function, you can create a path that will navigate from a start point to a finish point using a grid you have previously defined. We don't really want to make a path. We want to detect if we are colliding with a grid. How do we do this? Right, grid value, grid set, grid value, grid clear, set grid region. Ooh, grid value x. With this function, you can get the x coordinate within the given rectangular grid region of the value being searched for. You give the ds grid index as returned by ds grid create, along with xy positions for the top left and bottom right corners of the grid region to search, or supplying the value to search for. The above code checks a DS grid for a specific value within a rectangular region. Yeah, that's not really what we're looking for. We're not looking if it's got a value. We're looking for, is there a cell? Is this a part of the grid? Check this out. Oh, goodness. Hold on, let me update my Chrome here to be a little more visible for everyone. Here we go. Yeah. Now you at least see a little bit of what I'm seeing. You can check any given cell of the MP grid to see if it has been flagged as occupied or not, given the index of the previously created MP grid. I mean, this is not really what I'm looking for. If it has been occupied or the position being checked is out of the grid's bounds. How do I check the grid's bounds? That's what I want. This looks very close to what I'm looking for. We'll check the MP grid cell that corresponds to the mouse position, and if it is occupied, it sets image blend variable to red. Check the MP grid cell. Grid cell that corresponds to the mouse position. What is div? What is div? That divide? The number of times one number can go into another without a remainder. Oh, okay. Okay. So it's the opposite of mod, right? What is 16 here? Is that like the tile size or something? Oh. What should we do here? Upcode will check the MP grid cell that corresponds to the mouse position, and if it is occupied. Is that what that -1 is? Like, we're looking for the index of the grid. Basically, which grid are we looking at? And then the X coordinate of the grid to check, and the Y coordinate of the grid to check. So that's the div 16. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're trying to find the specific cell that the thing is. But then what is equal to -1? If it has been occupied or the position being checked is out of the grid's bounds, the function will return -1. I mean, how do you determine if something is occupied? And also, that's not really what I'm looking for. Like, I want to get the grid. Oh, grid get. You use to get the value from any cell. I don't really want. Select a random cell from the DS grid, index and variable grid, and store this value on variable. It's a random cell from the DS grid, index and variable grid, and stores its value. I just want to see, like, are we colliding with it? How do we do that? Value X. X for a specific value within a rectangular region. If it's found, yeah. Like, we don't want to sort through the grid. We don't want to search for a value. All we need to see is, are we on the grid? let's definitely get our dopamine hit. Hooray! Whoops! Gotta do green. It's not dopamine if it's not green. There we go. So we got get. How do we determine this? I mean, can we say mouse position? Get mouse, no. Mouse display mouse get? If mouse X is greater than grid, obj underscore global dot grid. What could it be? I'm really struggling to think this one through. Expand this back out. How do we get the attributes of the grid? Is really what I'm struggling with. How do we find the grid? You're doing the game jam too, Corey, over on YouTube. Lovely. Happy to hear it. How's it going? Value y? Function, you can get the y coordinate of the value being searched for. I don't want to search for a value. I just want to know if I'm on the grid. How does this work? Grid set is going to be really important. So I'm just going to write this down. Grid set. So far, so good. Learning a lot. Right on, right on. What kind of a game are you making? What are you learning? Is that grid region? Copy the contents of a rectangular area of grid cells from one previously defined DS grid to another, or it can be used to copy a region from within the same grid. No, we don't need to like copy stuff over. We'll be just fine with grid set for a little while. DS grid to MP grid. This function converts a DS grid into an MP grid where all 0 values become empty and all others are occupied. An optional mapping function can be provided to determine which values in the DS grid should be considered empty or occupied. Aren't we doing this? Don't we have an MP grid in here? Stop searching, stop. MP grid. Yes. We have MP grid create. So we need to be searching specifically for MP grid. What is an MP? Because I've been going off of a lot of assumptions of what this is. A motion planning grid. Okay, motion planning grid. It returns an index. Okay. The more cells they have, the more memory they will require. Sure, that makes sense. Perfect sense. Okay. The X and Y coordinates indicate the position, the top left corner of the Horizontal cells and vertical cells indicate the number of horizontal and vertical cells, which is what we have here. So it starts at 0, 0 in the room, and it is as many tiles as the room width divided by tile size. Hopped over to Twitch. Well, welcome on over. We're making an action game. It has a camera, UI, controls of a MOBA, but the character has to spread vines and cover the whole map. The environment and enemies that stop you. That's awesome. Very cool. We are kind of doing the opposite of that a little bit. So let me see if I can stop this from breaking for a sec. Here we go. So we are building a tower defense roguelike sort of thing, where you have enemies coming in, these E's, pathing into your base, and you are trying to play cards from your hand in order to build up towers, stop them from tearing down your stuff. And it's going to be kind of rogue based. So every time you play a card, it has a time cost, and that pushes the enemies along that many turns. So very cool. I hope you share this over to us when you get it close to being done. I want to hear about it. It looks kind of like we're making the opposite of each other in some ways. Oh, and you know what? We're not calling our draw hand function anymore. That's why. Let's see, draw hand. Oh. Or parent. Do you work in the game industry, or is this a new experience for you? If mouse X greater than grid, and grid is MP grid create. There's got to be a way to map pixels to the grid, right? There has to be a way to map pixels to the grid. Gotta be a way. Cell and get cell. You can check any given cell of the MP grid to see if it has been flagged as occupied or not. Yeah, I know. We don't really care about occupied though. I've been a software dev for a while, but I've never made games before. Been using Unreal now for a month. Oh, wonderful. Very cool, Corey Cupcake. Well, that's awesome. I'm super excited for you. That's lovely. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing. If so, feel free to just hang out. Totally fine. But I'd be curious to hear what made you transition from, or at least start trying out making a game. What is it that got that started? Our whole objective here at Fox Hollow is to be a nonprofit that helps people gain the skill set to transition into the video game industry. People that maybe thought, I should never try it. It's a super saturated market. There's no reason for me to do it. Other people are going to be better than me. I shouldn't even try. So I'm always really interested in hearing what people's stories are of, well, maybe I'll try a little bit. Maybe I'll try building a game. I think it's super interesting. Potential functions. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. I think we're at the point where I need to start Googling GameMaker. How tell if mouse cursor on top of MP grid. Okay, that's an interesting concept. Let's go back to here. What we can do is we have our X and our Y. We have our mouse X and mouse Y. But then we have X grid. So var X grid equals X div obj global dot tile size, right? And then we can copy this. And then we can just do validation to see is the current X grid and the current Y grid bigger than the amount of cells in the grid? If so, don't do anything. If it isn't though, let's start moving into gridified movement. I've always wanted to make a game, says Corey Cupcakes. I've never considered working in the industry, mostly due to all the bad stories. In a dream world, I'd be a solo indie dev and make an honest living and be able to not work for the man anymore. I hear that. I hear that really deeply. That's actually a very similar story to mine. I've been a product designer for 10 years. And I have had a lot of experiences that have made me realize the reason I was going to work for companies of having a solid, stable paycheck doesn't really exist anymore. At least not in my field. And if I'm going to be constantly stressed out of if I'm going to have a paycheck next week, then I might as well make something on my own that is at least going to try and help people. And I'm going to not have to be worried about it. So I hear you on wanting to kind of strike out on your own, do something, make an honest living. That's super duper cool. I'm really excited for you. Very, very excited for you. We've got a lot of people like that in our community here that are just doing the best with what they can. We were just talking with a guy who got laid off from an oil rig and said, I want to learn programming. And so we came in and started learning with all of us. So power to you, friend. That's exciting. That is a bold, courageous choice. I'm very excited. Ooh, you know what? We need not just X-Grid, but we need mouse X-Grid too. We'll probably rename all. Do we need to? I don't think so, because X equals mouse X. That should be just fine. Be just fine. So if X-Grid is greater than obj global dot grid, and then there's got to be a way to like get the dimensions of the grid, right? Is greater than okay, here's a really gross way we can do this. We can do the same thing here. Obj global grid div obj global dot tile size. And that's obviously not going to work. And instead of dividing the grid, we would need to do the room width. There you go. So we can do that. And I am going to make a new variable here just to tidy this up a little bit. So variable grid columns equals. And then we're going to do the same thing for grid rows. So we're redefining how big this is, which is a little awkward. But now we can say if X grid is bigger than grid columns, I'm going to have to modify this because I'm not accounting for the playing area anymore. Here we go. This one. Set back our parent, put this in. So it's grid minus the grid offset. Hey, Corey Cupcakes, thank you so much for the follow, friend. Excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Minus obj global dot grid the offset. There we go. There we go. That'll work. There we go. That'll give us what we're looking for. Cool, 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 cool. Okay, so we are now checking. We are on the X scale, right? Do we need another check for Y? Do we need another check for Y? Trying to think. Could it be possible to be on, to have X aligned with it, but not Y? Yes, of course. Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to say the silly thing out loud, and then it starts to make sense. So if Y grid is greater than grid rows, and we're going to flip these to be less than. Oh, come on. How many people are on your team, Corey? We'll just collapse these into one F. I know professional software engineers look at the code I write and weep and tell stories to their grandchildren of a boogeyman they saw once on a silly stream. and.or. So if your gridified position is less than the size of the grid, then we can do this, which is going to be SD card play. Awesome. Fantastic. And we're going to want to pass in the ID and what? X and Y. The X grid and the Y grid. Yeah, that makes sense. The object and its position. That's what we need to pass in. Okay. Perfect. So now we need to accept those. So we need to accept the object. So we need an ID. We need X grid and Y grid. Okay, fine. We'll put the underscore on there. I was hoping we wouldn't be able to do that. Met only inexperienced ones. I've been around long enough to know if it works. It's probably fine. There you go. There you go. That's the big thing that I keep coming back to. I see, you know, all these like leak code challenges, and I see everyone talking about, oh, you can rewrite this down into like 2 lines of code from 7,000. I'm like, yeah, that's super rad, right? Really great. And I'm sure in a lot of games, you really have to be worrying about performance, and those refactors, those performance improvements really matter. But it kind of feel like that really only matters for games that are way bigger in scope than I'm probably ever going to make. You know, like, how can I be making 2D roguelike type sort of things that just have an interesting concept? That's my whole thing. I don't want to make AAA games. I don't really feel like I need to know all of that optimization stuff. If you look at Undertale and the horror story that is that code, you know, it works. It does its job. And it's okay. Undertale runs on everything. So I think a lot of the times we can maybe scare people away when we talk about things like that, or be scared away. So that's a perspective that I'm taking. It works, it runs, this game is not complex enough that's really going to cause any problems. There's only old code bad code you haven't written yet, and bad code you have to go back to and change. It's only the last one that's a problem. Oh, I love that. Love it. That's great. Okay, so what do we want to have happen? Let's go over to our diagram here. I think I can nuke this now. So, when we play a card from our hand, grab this one, bring it up, and it is now in the grid. What we want is to swap the sprite from a card to an effect. We need to show, what are the words I'm looking for? Whether you can place it on that spot. So we need an whoa! Sigma, where are you going? Oh dear. Where are you going? Here we go. Should be in place on that spot or not, which means we are also going to have an enabled and disabled state. And then on mouse up, execute the effect. Simple. Our team is 5 people, 2 programmers, 1 technical artist and generalist, 1 environment artist, and an audio/musician. Very, very cool. That sounds like an exciting team. That's very rad. Very rad. We have 4 people on ours, and we're all fairly inexperienced. We have one who is a professional software engineer, and he's doing a lot of heavy lifting. And then another one who's in school, and another one who's kind of doing the artists and everything. And everyone's kind of doing a little bit of everything, and it's being a wild ride. Yours sounds a lot more focused. Very cool. So let's work on changing that sprite out. So we need to set sprite. Set sprite. Object set sprite. ID. I'm a little concerned this may cause a problem. That it will set all cards to the sprite. We may need to get like the specific element. Have you been working in Game Maker for a while? Okay, the cool that I'm hesitating on, the fact that I'm hesitating about this is kind of rad. I've only been in it for a few months, so I've been kind of getting my feet underneath myself and reteaching myself a lot of coding fundamentals that I haven't used for nearly a decade because I've been doing web dev or product design. I haven't had to do anything in like a C-based language for a long time. So we've built a bunch of little arcadey type sort of projects in that time, and we're working on an incremental platformer hybrid that I'm really excited about, kind of dark fantasy, thematically exploring fear and insecurity, and then overcoming your own emotional space in order to transform your environment. Very excited about it. It's taking a big back seat to this project, which is the Game Jam. So that'll come back in a couple of weeks. Right, that's what I need to do. I need to go grab some more sprites that people have been uploading so I can bring them in and start swapping things around. Drive. Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna download all this. Download this whole thing. Get a little crazy with it. A little wild. So we are gonna set it to, let's say, just sprite. Sprite underscore blob. Sure, we'll call it blob. Hooray. Easy game. Let's make a quick blob. Yeah, my wife is an illustrator. She just wrapped up a project for a children's book this week, and she told me that she would like to illustrate that project, which I did not know about. I'm very excited about. So now I have like real art instead of what it was just gonna be me. Okay, so we'll just kind of like do a little splat here or something. Sure. And we'll export SPR underscore blob. And I'm just getting something really quick put together because our artist, I'm sure, will want to do a better job than I am doing. Throw this into our sprites folder. There we go. Go back to card play. Great, excellent. We've got it. And I need to extract all of these assets that are finally done downloading. We're gonna bring them all into here. This is let's see, SPR underscore file files. And just to have that consistent, just copy and paste. This is cliffs. And then water. Jim is a lot better looking than when I last played with it in 2011, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the PR underscore factory. They've gone through a lot. You know what Unity just kind of went through, my understanding is they went through a little bit ago where they tried to update their monetization methods and ran into some big walls from the community. But the cool thing is they learned and they totally changed it. And it's completely free to tool around in. It's only a $100 license and you get that forever. And then I think there may be some additional restrictions if you want to like export to consoles or something, but it's pretty reasonable as far as business practices go. Dirt files. All right. Grab all these. I mean, Heartbound from PirateSoftware was made in GameMaker, right? Make a new group for tile sets. Start organizing things a little bit. Go back to our script here. I like that. If I ever have to pay for Unreal, I'll be very happy. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I'm a GM fan. It's great. Probably where most people should start. That's kind of what I figured. We've had people come in and say like, well, why aren't you using Unity or Unreal or even Godot? And I'm like, listen, those engines are rad, but like it's a lot. It's a lot to bite off all at once. Working on low scope things is really great, and especially for the mission of this nonprofit that we're building is getting people the skill set they need and building a game in 6 months together so that they have a project on their portfolio ready to go storm the world. Like, we need something that's easy to learn, easy to pick up. So like Unreal is awesome, but it just doesn't match with what we're looking to accomplish here. It was cool, but it's more complicated than GameMaker. Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's something I want to start exploring. Exploring after this incremental platformer project, because I think there may be something there, and I love that it's open source. That means that if GameMaker ever goes off the deep end again, or like they do another Unity, then we're not up the creek. But it's also pretty tough. So. Okay. So now we have X grid and Y grid. We need to set X equal to X grid and set Y equal to Y grid. Now, one question I have is this going to put them in the center of the grid space, or is it going to put them in like the top left corner? Oh, and I need to change the origin on Sprite Blob to middle center. There we go. I think Unity / Unreal have a significant heft that GM and Godot. Yeah, I agree. Of course, like Thor says, it depends on the game you're making. Absolutely. And that's why when you're starting out, you pick low scope. And frankly, we see that when you look at Steam, there's a billion bajillion indies out there. And many of them have 0 sales. But something that's really cool is a lot of them have tons of sales, and you've never heard of them. So I've been going through that list and looking at them on like Steam Tracker and stuff. and finding, you know, like little games like this, like Breakout Survivors. They made $2,000. This game probably took like 2 weeks to build. Reasonable. And if they keep on publishing it and marketing it and stuff, cool stuff can happen, right? And then there are some indie games I type into here that I have never heard of before, and I see like $1 million on. It's pretty wild. You know, if we just go to like Farmer and Tree, 89% positive reviews, 2,700 units sold. Pretty cool. 2D small scope. Yep. You have an interesting idea, and that will carry you further than graphical fidelity. 100%. Going through the exact same process. Once PirateJam is over, I'm going to night/weekend my first solo game. My goal is 10 reviews. That's incredible, Corey. Is there a space where we can follow? We've got 6 people watching right now between YouTube and Twitch, and then we have the Discord. I'd love to follow along if we could. What site are you looking at there? That was vginsights.com. Let me put it in chat. Yeah, it's very cool. If you go to like Vampire Survivors, right, you can see 20 million. Oh, but you can't really see it, can you? Hold on. Bring this over. There we go. That's a little better. 20 million gross revenue. And of course, that's Vampire Survivors. We're not going to be Vampire Survivors in all likelihood. Vampire Survivors didn't know it was going to be Vampire Survivors, right? If we align the historical data to the release, you could see like no one played it for a full 20 days after release. And then I think it was like Asmongold or someone made a video because it was very cheap. And it was very silly. It was very easy content for a content creator to make. I think the title was Asmongold buys an incredibly expensive game and kills thousands of enemies. Yeah, people are going to click on that. And then that starts the trend. So, compelling concept, way more powerful than anything else. All right, where are we here? There we go. I should figure out where I can put updates low. I quit X when it became X. Maybe I need to spin up a Discord. Do people have Discord fatigue? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really understand Discord. Once you get past a certain amount of people, it just becomes so unwieldy. I see people like the PirateSoftware Discord. They're just like talking in general channels about stuff specific to them, and I'm like, why? This is not where you have this sort of conversation. Go do DMs or get into a more specific channel or something. Like, I don't really care about your team meetings. I don't know why I need updates on this. You know, so I'm the wrong person to ask. Miss old Twitter. Oh man, yeah. Yep, it's a thing. So, yeah, I don't really know. But what I do know is you need some space to host your community. And you don't want it to be tied to any specific platform. Because if you're doing it all on YouTube, and then all of a sudden YouTube says, we're changing our ad revenue model, or your type of content is no longer welcome here, you're up the creek. You have to try and convert people over to something new, and you're going to lose a ton of people, and it's going to be a disaster. So diversify your platforms. We're streaming to YouTube and Twitch right now. We have a Discord. We are going to be doing podcasting soon. Be platform agnostic. That's the biggest thing that I would say. And be discoverable. Because if you want to sell, the sad truth is you have to market. And it's not even a thing of if someone can sell better than you, they will have more success than you, which is true. It's not just that our work does not stand on its own merits, which is also true. It also depends on other things, but frankly, there's just too many games to sift through. There's just too much. Even if someone really wanted to find your game, if there's not an easy way for them to find it, very likely they never will. Reality of a global society. If we all lived in villages and we were all making games for a couple hundred people, different story. But we're a globalized society. Okay. Anyways, I'm sure I'm not saying anything new to you. I'm sure you've deeply considered all this stuff already. I totally agree. I love me some marketing. I just figured once I had a Steam page, I'd start centralizing to that. I think Steam as a platform is super underrated. Yeah, I agree. Which is bad. It's really bad that they get to have that monopoly, have that 30% cut. I was watching a YouTube video of an indie dev who's a software engineer and does YouTubing indie dev in his spare time. He says, yeah, Steam has a monopoly. Like, what am I going to do? Sell it on Epic Games? Yeah, no, I'll take the 30% pay cut, you know? Like, they can just kind of do what they want to do. But it is powerful, and it is underrated. 120M Mao insanity. Oh, man. So I think I need to start writing down comments to get stuff. Monthly active users. Oh, is that Vampire Survivors? 120 monthly active users? 120 million monthly active users? We need to do the card's effect. So we need a definition on the card. Let's go ahead and inherit the parent event. Nuke all this. And then here we are going to create an effect. Right? Effect equals Steam 120 million. Oh, Steam has 120 million. Yeah, that makes sense. That number seems a little low for Steam just in general. That's wild. It's absolutely wild. By the way, thank you everyone who is stopping by today. This has been a wonderfully successful stream. Not successful just because there are people in it, but successful because I hope we're all building amazing things. I hope we're all doing some really neat stuff. So thank you for being here, everyone. Right, I remember why I came back to the Game Maker manual. I'm looking for the grid set thing. Ooh, and I put that over in card parent. Yes, grid set. Because this is where we're gonna need that. Okay, grid set. Is it MP grid set? Grid. That's disconcerting. How do I change a property of a cell in a motion pathing grid? Clear cell, add instances, add rectangle. Take a look here. What is add rectangle? I should define a rectangle within the room. Then it marks all NP grid cells. Touch that rectangle as being forbidden, meaning that the pathfinding. Oh, so that's for building obstacles. Okay. What about instances? Uses the instance collision mask decided by the sprite properties of the mask index to mark cells as forbidden. Okay. You can consider precise collisions or not. That's not going to matter for us. So how do we change? How change the right on a cell game maker? NP. Take a look here. Question regarding NP grids. Let's see. What can we do here? I haven't tried this, but that's mainly because I don't want units to overlap. We're not really caring about overlapping. We're only doing 1 unit per grid space specifically for this. Are we going to have to convert to a DS grid? Let's read what like a DS grid actually is. What is a DS grid? Look this up. DS grid is basically a type of array with 2 dimensions. Define the grid by setting its integer width and height. Okay. So a DS grid is this. Shrink it down. That's a DS grid. If we're looking for an MP grid, DS grid to MP grid. This function converts a DS grid into an MP grid where all 0 values become empty and all others are occupied. I like this idea of this DS grid because it means we can set states for each of these points to change the terrain type. So a big part of the game is, creep, right? You can play cards to change the terrain type. You can change it from a grass into creep. So we need to be able to modify this. Oh dear. So change these tiles into something else. Object set sprite, argument 1, incorrect type, object set sprite. Oh, really? Okay, interesting. So that's saying we can't change it into the blob that we have built. We'll get to that in a minute. So we kind of need a DS grid and an MP, right? Optional mapping function can be provided to determine which values in the DS grid should be considered empty or occupied. Okay. And we'd have to do that because we don't need to do extra mapping because we're not letting people walk on creep. They will attack the creep and destroy it, and then we'll flip it back to grass. Okay. How do we accomplish this? Grid can contain any value that can be converted to real using the function real. If there are values that cannot be converted, e.g. a string that contains only letters, the function will fail and an error message is shown. Do we do a DS grid? Do we just build our own multi-dimensional array? What is the right call? Function copies the given MP grid into a DS grid. Still in the DS grid will contain the value -1 if its flag is occupied in the MP grid, or 0 if it isn't. And that is tricky. Because we kind of need two of these. We need a grid for the terrain, and we need a grid for the units that are on the terrain. Kind of need two. We need two grids overlapping each other. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all we need to do. So let's, in our global, we have our grid, MP grid create, and then we need to do, so this is the unit grid. Unit grid. Because we're not only going to have enemies on a grid space, we're also going to have towers. We need to be able to detect, and not just towers, but also resource buildings. We have 3 different types of things that can be on here. But these buildings will not need to move. They don't need to path, but they do need to prevent pathing. So maybe if we go back to what is an MP grid? What is an MP grid? Because if it's only for pathing, and we don't use that to determine state at all, other than can it be moved through or not? How are we doing this for enemy movement? Draw path, draw self, and then enemy controller. Goal point X equals path get point X, get point Y. X equals goal point X minus the tile size divided by 2. Okay. Then, if your position in the grid is equal to horizontal center grid, and this. Oh, okay. Saying if you have reached the tile with the home base in it, kill yourself. Okay. And then if, and this is spawning. Where's movement? How do we do movement? It's here. X equals Y equals. X equals Y. Goal point X minus tile size divided by 2. Goal point X is path get point. Function will return the X position in room coordinates of the point that you input for the path that you index. We'll return the X position of the point that you input for the path. And path is, where are we defining path? Global? No. There we go. OBJ enemy. Path at. Create a path in GameMaker without using the path editor. Okay. And then, so we're making a path entity. And then we are setting the goal of that path to the X position of the point that you input. The point identity to check of 1. Path get point 1, path get point 1. Huh. Okay. We have MP grid path. This function, you can create a path that will navigate from a start point to a finish point using an MP grid that you have previously defined, avoiding any obstacles that have already been added into the grid. Okay, so this is our grid. This is our path. We are setting our X starting point on the grid. So this could probably get reworked to be a gridified movement coordinate. Same with Y. So that's the X and the Y position of the grid that they currently inhabit. And then where is the X they're trying to get to, which is the center of the grid times tile size plus tile size divided by 2. We're basically saying find from your current position to the center of the grid. Go. Don't move diagonally. Okay. Get point. Oh, I bet what this is saying is look at the next step of the path that we have built and been used in this grid path, right? I bet that's what it is. So we are getting the next point and then setting it, our X and Y, to that point, and then offsetting to be centered in the grid. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna need that over here in the card script. Grid minus that offset. Go. And that will center us in the grid square instead of being in the upper left. So if you remember, had that question, we solved it. Hooray, go team. So, okay. Very, very cool. Okay. So, once again, we need to set the space. We're going to have two grids. We have MP grid for pathing. And then we're going to have our DS grid for terrain. And then I don't think we need anything for the units themselves. I think we just put them in the corresponding spot. Right? We'll need to check adjacency to things, like is a building next to a resource? But I think that's independent. You know what? It would be nice to have this. So this isn't necessarily terrain, it's tile set. And then this is going to be objects. For pathing of enemies, the tile sets are grass, creep, or water, which is to say not possible. And then on objects, we can have enemies. We can have defensive towers. And then we need to have resource buildings. And we have resource locations. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. And then each defensive tower, resource building, and everything can have their own scripts to check for adjacency to enemies or resources and then carry out their effect. I think that's the way we need to go. I think that's what we got to do. Also, just dawned on me that you all were not able to see that. My apologies. But I think that's the right call. I think that's the right call. So, FYI, I've got about 20 minutes before I'm going to have to jump off here for the day. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. It's been such a pleasure getting to know all of you. So, we need to do DS grid set. We need some sort of tile set grid. Tile set grid at X and Y, and the value will be FBR underscore creep, or bile, I guess. Which isn't really going to work, because I don't really understand this function. This function can be used to set a given cell within the DS grid to any value, which can be a real number or a string. So what we can do is we set it to that value, and then we can say if this grid point, we need to have a script run at the very beginning of the game. That's what we need to do, because this is all kind of hard coded in. So in our global, we need to make these extra grids. So let's make grid underscore tile set equals ds grid create. And then we're gonna have ds grid grid underscore objects. Okay, you win. I dug this out and I'm gonna start posting updates through the jam. Hey, yeah, awesome. Here, I'm gonna throw that in our Discord. Just had someone on the stream decide to start chasing, posting updates for their game over on the platform that used to be named Twitter. Go check them out. It's kind of like the inverse of what we're building with a rad team. Sweet. Thank you. Posted some screen caps. Awesome. Hold on, I want to check this out. Let's see here. Oh gosh, my least favorite thing about websites nowadays is you can't even access this until you make an account. Like, come on, it's Tweet, dude. Like, you don't need me to make an account. No, I don't want notifications. Please go away. Skip. Oh my goodness. You're forcing me through mandatory onboarding and choosing options. See. And then it says, we recommend you follow Elon Musk's account. Whatever. Do PlayStation. All right. And you're not even going to honor the URL I went to. You're going to redirect me to the home. Okay, this progress bar will show you how much of your spread has covered the level. 100% equals win condition. That's great. Oh, I love that leaf motif on the bottom. That's super cool. And the leaf cursor. Ha! I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Lovely. Okay. So DS grid create. We need to make this object space. That is super cool. I can't wait to see how it progresses. Very, very rad. DS grid create. And what are the arguments we need to do? A width and a height. It's going to be the same width and height for this. I'm going to pass in all these same arguments. And it's saying, no, I don't want to do this. I just want 2 arguments, please. A width and a height. However, how do I know where you're getting placed? So what is grid creating? With this function, you can create a new DS grid data structure. The specified cell height, width, and height. Ooh, so it's a data structure. This is not an actual grid. Okay. Bevan Velour, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you for hanging out today. I appreciate it. I hope you're making something incredible. Or that you get to the point where you can. Welcome on in. How's your day been today? Let's see. So this can work. This can work as a state machine for us, right? We can determine what terrain is in each of these spots. We can determine which object is in each of these spots. The problem, thanks to my bit 6, I'm going to lurk and watch from the couch. No worries. You enjoy yourself and get some rest in. You need some chicken noodle soup, I'll fax it over to you. For real, get some good rest. Yes, grid create is going to make this array. So then we need to access it, and then we need to swap out a tile set. So how do we change a tile? How change tile set? Would we even need to? I don't think we need to change a tile set. I think all we need to do is to place a bile sprite on an XY coordinate of a screen, right? And it could even be an object. We do object bile. Do we have edges on this tile set? We do. let's not worry about that for now. I'm gonna make a new object. I think this is a good idea. Bile. And then we're gonna make a new group, and that will be bile in there. We're gonna take it out of the deck. We're gonna put our bile tiles sprite on it, and obj bile on create. We're gonna set the sprite index to 1. And then, you know what? Oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm gonna. Yeah. I would check like 1 pixel to the right. If bbox, we'll go top right, bottom left. We'll be a good web developer. If bbox top +1 equals, or not equals, place collision. What am I doing? Roguelike card games sounds so fun. Requirements on YouTube. Thanks for coming on in. I hope so. We've got this concept of, let me bring this up again. I would run the build, but I'm in the middle of it and breaking it. This concept of a bug, eldritch horror insectoid thing emerging from the ground, and Industrial Revolution humans are coming out to stop it. And your job is to be the eldritch horror, spread out creep all over the map, upon which you can build towers by using cards and fend off the humans. So it's kind of tower defense, roguelike, kind of card battler, or card deck builder, because every X amount of turns, you spawn out, spew forth a new card you have to deal with. And the kicker for me that makes me really excited about this project is that we're using rogue style activation in order to make it happen. So when you play a card, it's going to have a time cost associated. So if you play this card with 1 time, all the bad guys take 1 more step towards you. Right, so very, very original rogue style movement. Very excited about it. What is it called? I don't know. We don't know yet. It's just for this GameJam for PirateSoftware, if you're familiar with them over on Twitch and YouTube. And we're just excited to be building it. We've got a team of 4 different people from all sorts of walks of life that are wanting to just make some games. That's what we do here, is we help people gain the skill set needed to make games, myself included. We're actually a nonprofit devoted to accomplishing that mission. So this is a very big and exciting thing for us. We'll have a name eventually, and you'll be able to find it on itch.io as well when it gets submitted. Yeah, thanks for coming over and hanging out, Requirements. Appreciate you. If place meeting X and Y +1, and it's colliding with a bile, okay, you're still yelling at me. We got X, we got Y, we got object. Oh, we got rid of the 1. There we go. So if there is something above it, then good luck. Thank you. Thank you. We're having a great time. We're learning a lot. And that's the big thing. Lots of learning over a very short amount of time. Very, very happy about it. How about yourself? You building anything exciting? Also, I'm probably going to have to jump off in about 10 minutes. We'll see how it all goes, but we'll play it by ear once we hit that point. My daughter will be getting out of her quiet time, and I'll need to go be dad. So, we are checking is there something above? Then let's just like set something. So top collision, top border equals false. This is not a top border. And then we can just copy this, right? we need an x here. At this x and this y, we're not going to want plus 1, we're going to want minus 1, because it starts at 0 up here and progresses as we go down. Then, if we're doing left, place meeting B box left or right. Top, right, bottom, left. That's what we're doing. So right will give us an x coordinate plus 1, and the y is equal to y. Then top border, we have right border equals false. Then left. No. I've got this wrong. I need to copy this one because we're now checking bottom, which is going to be a y. Bottom, and it's going to be plus 1. Checking 1 pixel below the bounding box. Bottom border. And then repeat this again for left. If left minus 1 at y, left border equals false. We're making progress here. This is great. So now that we have this state machine kind of getting generated, we're going through checking, is there bile creep top, right, bottom, left? If there isn't, I think we can simplify this a lot. If there is no place meeting, then of it being up top, and looking at our tile set over here. So if there's nothing on the top and there is nothing on the left or the right, let's go on the right, sure. And that's an or, I recognize that. Let me change that to an and. So if there's nothing up top and there's nothing to the right, then we can set the sprite index to, what would that be? 2. And that will give us a top right rounded corner. And then we can copy this, right? And then put in left. Left minus 1. Then the sprite index is 4. 5. It's 5. Yes, that's the top left corner. Right there. Okay. And then we're just going to repeat this for 3 and 4. Easy game. And that will change the sprite out and give us borders. Hey, shouldn't be too hard, right? Assuming this B-box thing actually works the way that I am expecting it to. We're just going to reverse all of these signs here. This is checking if bottom, 1 pixel below the bottom, do we need these plus 1s? I don't think so. Because if we're putting them up next against each other, then they're colliding. And that's what we're checking for, is there a collision? I don't think we need these checking pixel thing. Ooh, I may regret this, but I don't think I will. If I regret it, it's because it needs other things in order to work, not what I've been doing. So let's change this to, so if the bottom and the right are hitting, or are not connected, bottom and right is not connected, then we will do sprite index 3 and then 4 for bottom left. Go. file object. And then in card, object card, instead of doing this grid set nonsense, we can just do object create instance layer, or instance create layer. There we go. Instance create layer at, we need a gridified coordinate. So maybe we don't do instance create layer here and we're calling a script. Make B. So that we gotta pass in the X and Y. Do we need that? We're only gonna have one card that makes creep, right? For now, at least. So maybe we don't need that, but we just need to process things a little bit more. We need to get those X and Y coordinates. Go back down here where we're defining those. Card parent. Go. We're going to define those. You can get rid of that underscore because it's not a local variable anymore. We have X grid and Y grid, and we're going to create at X grid and Y grid. But we also need the offset is the other thing. We need to make sure we're bringing over the offset. X grid minus not grid offset, but tile size divided by 2. Go. Oops. And we'll paste all that. Got our X and Y's. We are going to create on the instances layer an object file, and we don't care about the var struct. So that should be good. Yeah, right? That should work. And then on object bile, ooh, I'm seeing stuff here that's getting clever. On object bile creation, we need to update the MP grid, which makes perfect sense. So we will MP grid add cell. At in obj global dot grid, and it will be our X and our Y. Ooh, no, it needs to be gridified. If we don't gridify that, not gonna work at all. Oh, X grid and Y grid. There we go. Now we're passing in a cell into the grid, into the MP grid, the pathing grid, to say, this is bile you cannot enter into. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Hey, Corey, thanks for joining the Discord. Cool. Cool. Awesome. So now we are correctly, supposedly, placing bile on a grid position. And that grid position is being marked as not pathable for the enemy. What we need to do now is we need to call that effect. I don't think this is actually going to work because I think instance create layer is going to make, it's going to return like that object. So we can't assign it equal to that because then it will just create it. This is not getting it ready to be created. Okay. Effect equals, let's cut that. We're going to say make bile. We'll say that's a string, and then in global, we can define a struct. So we can do hard effects equals, ooh, gosh. Every time I have to declare a struct, I have to remember how to do this. Oh, you know what? I just barely noticed the time. I just noticed the time. My apologies. I've got to bounce. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. What a wonderful day. I hope we've all had a wonderful time building really exciting, awesome things. Thank you for joining us on YouTube and on Twitch. Thank you for the people that came into the Discord. I appreciate all of you, and I really, really hope you get to be building some great stuff. So if it's at all worth anything, know that I want to see what you're building. Excited for you. Let me know any way I can support. With that, see you next time.